So the last time I made a video, it ended like this. And this is my first video I've made in over 4 years after I fell off the face of the earth, and I do want to get back into it, so hopefully you can expect to see more transit-related things coming from me soon. And here we are almost an entire year later. The Chicago L has over 140 stations across the city and some surrounding suburbs. While the system as a whole is very expansive, solid on accessibility for legacy transit agencies, and usually quite nice, not all stations are built equally, and the quality can vary quite wildly depending on the station. But with so many stations, what kind of madman will be willing to compile data on every single one and rank them? That person is me.
Your safety is important. If you observe unattended packages, vandalism, or suspicious activity, inform CTA personnel immediately.
I'm going to put a disclaimer here that while I have ridden the entire L and passed through every station, I have not used every single station, which is why I'm going to be compiling a bunch of data to make sure this list is as objective as possible. Although there may be some aspects that will be a little bit more subjective. There are 6 factors I'm considering when gathering data for this list. First and most important is ridership, which I gave a score out of 100. I used the most recent data for this at the time of writing the script, which is from September of 2025. Also scored out of 100 is the walk score of the station, which I gathered straight from the walk score website. I know walk score data isn't perfect, but there are many other aspects of data that can trump over the walk score data. Next is accessibility. I gave any accessible station 80 points, and I gave 0 points to any inaccessible station. Out of 60 points is the cleanliness of the station. Basically, does it have an issue of always smelling? Are the floors or walls always dirty? Because it does have a large impact on the quality of the station. Next, out of 40 points is simply just, is the station in a highway median or directly adjacent to an expressway? Any non-highway station gets the full 40 points, and any station that is in or directly adjacent to a highway gets 0. And lastly, and this is the most subjective aspect of the list, is just vibes, which I ranked out of only 30 points. If a station has any cool art pieces or incredible architecture, I'll give it more points here. I am not using this to rank the vibes of the neighborhood the station runs in because that would be incredibly unfair and just not the right thing to do. So with all the preliminary stuff out of the way, what is the absolute worst, most diabolical station on the entire CTA? Well, it's... Coming in at dead last at 144th is Cicero on the Blue Line. And honestly, I'm not all that surprised about this. It does almost everything a station can do wrong. Extremely low ridership, it's inaccessible. While not being disgusting, it's certainly not the cleanest station. It's a highway median station and the vibes are just not there. The walk score data isn't that bad, but at 69, it's still solidly in the lower half of that too. The surrounding area doesn't leave much to walk to in the first place. You have single-family homes to the south with a railway and an industrial area, a used tire shop, and vacant lots. The saving grace of this station is its connection to the Cicero bus to take you points north and south. This is also just one of those stations you have to walk up an incredibly long ramp just to exit, just to add insult to injury. Cicero, I want to see better from you. It's just sad to see the damage that the Eisenhower Expressway did on the west side of Chicago, something that can also be seen in our next station. Number 143 is Harlem Blue Line, not to be confused with Harlem Blue Line. I'm talking about Harlem once again in the Forest Park branch. You're going to notice a theme here on the bottom 10 of the list. Harlem has virtually all the same issues as Cicero, but has even lower ridership. The station has a slightly higher walk score and is a bit closer to residential development, but there's not much nice I can say besides that. 142 is Pulaski Blue Line, another Forest Park branch station. From fear of starting to sound like a broken record, I'll say this. Inaccessible, highway median, low density, and these stupid long ramps. 141 is Austin Blue Line, and oh, another Forest Park branch station. I would love to give Austin bonus points for having a park nearby, but it's mostly a golf course. Somehow, this even adds more insult to injury. 140 is Western on the Forest Park branch. This station once again has the long ramp, but it only has one exit, an exit once again surrounded by low-density housing and vacant lots. The station does have a decent-sized apartment complex nearby that could contribute to ridership, and it's more residential than industrial, but once again, not much more that I haven't already said. 139 is Oak Park on the Blue Line. This station has a slight leg up to the other Forest Park branch stations because it has some businesses operating on Oak Park Avenue, and walkability once you exit the station isn't too bad, but the station itself once again is inaccessible and in the middle of a highway. 138 is Montrose Blue Line, our first non-Forest Park branch station. Finally, instead of an inaccessible highway median station on the Forest Park branch, I get to talk about an inaccessible highway median station on the O'Hare branch. The station actually has decent ridership, but it's located right where the Edens and Kennedy expressways merge, leading it to be one of the noisiest and unsightly of all of the highway median stations in the city. There's also a decent amount of industrial area you need to walk through just to get to the residential area around the station, but at least there's no ramps of doom here. And back to the Forest Park branch at 137 is Racine on the Blue Line. The station is much closer into downtown than the other stations we've talked about so far, so there is more development around the station. The station was recently renovated and looks quite nice, and with the main entrance on Racine reopened, it's definitely had a bit of a glow up recently. Unfortunately, not enough of a glow up to get out of the bottom 10, though. Back to the O'Hare branch, 136 is Irving Park on the Blue Line. Similar to Montrose, it's another inaccessible station on the O'Hare branch. The station is also located right where the Kennedy Expressway runs elevated, meaning the entrances are located directly underneath the expressway, which is quite unpleasant. The platforms here are terrifyingly narrow, especially for a station of higher ridership such as Irving Park. Once you exit the station, walkability isn't so bad though, it's just a matter of the station itself kind of sucking. Our first non-highway station of the video, 135, is Clinton on the Blue Line, making the bottom 10 of this list all Blue Line stations. Apologies to any Blue Line riders out there. Clinton is the first station in the Milwaukee-Dearborn subway coming from Forest Park, and I've always personally considered it to be one of the dirtiest stations on the CTA. From the platform, to the walls, to the terrifying maze of steps needed to exit the station, to the incredibly narrow escalators, it's not very pleasant. Not to mention the incredibly loud noise whenever trains arrive or depart. The entrance to the station is also located directly under a highway, so we really can't escape it, can we? It has the benefit of being located downtown and close to Union Station, so it's a very convenient station to use, just not the most pleasant. Finally, escaping the Blue Line, we have South Boulevard on the Purple Line at 134. This station is less actively terrible and more uneventful, being one of the absolute lowest stations on the entire CTA for ridership. And being inaccessible, there's not really much going for this station, other than not being in the middle of a highway. Otherwise though, it's honestly quite nice. Very quaint and surrounded by greenery, but having a quarter of its walkshed being a cemetery and being so close to Howard definitely takes a big bite out of its potential ridership. Man, I really thought we could escape the Blue Line for a little bit longer, but 133 is LaSalle. This station is very, very similar to Clinton, being an underground station in the loop. It has the same issues of being quite dirty, noisy, and all around an unpleasant experience. It gets bonus points for not being located underneath a highway, and it serves a very quick connection to the LaSalle metro station, which is nice. 132 is Harrison on the Red Line, another underground station. This may just be me, but I almost always forget this station even exists. Anytime I'm on the Red Line going through and I get past Jackson, I always think Roosevelt's the next stop, and then I get jump scared when I hear the Harrison announcement. And that's honestly a good way to sum this station up. It's not all that clean, it doesn't have the soundproofing panels like the other underground Red Line stations, making it quite loud. It's lower ridership than its adjacent stations, and all around just isn't very eventful. 131 is Sheridan, also on the Red Line. Sheridan was opened in 1900, and it feels like it has not been touched a single time since then, being the only station on the entire system to not even have the blue tactile strips at the edge of the platform. I honestly should have given this station negative points in the accessibility ranking. Anytime I've been here, it feels like the station could just spontaneously combust anytime a train comes through, and in the winter, it turns into an elevated ice rink. Where Sheridan does get points though is in ridership and vibes. Being flanked by the curves on either end leads to some great views of trains arriving and departing, and I have to give a shout out to Byron's Hot Dogs directly next to the station. This place alone makes Sheridan worth a visit. Just try not to fall on the tracks. 130 is Noise on the Purple Line. Another very quaint station on the Purple Line, and like South Boulevard, it just doesn't really have much going on around it. Low-density single-family homes, a few apartments, and some businesses nearby. Unfortunately, getting points taken off for inaccessibility, but otherwise, I do really like the station. It's pretty cute. Staying on the Purple Line for 129, we have Maine. Same things apply here too. Quiet station, inaccessible, but slightly higher ridership than Noise. Also, love the North Shoreline memorabilia in the station. Our first Green Line station of the video, and unfortunately the worst one, 128, is Oak Park on the Green Line. Unfortunately inaccessible, but gets decent ridership for the part of the Lake Street L it's on. The station also drops you off right by downtown Oak Park, so there's a lot to walk to once you do exit the station. Back to the Purple Line for 127, we have Central. This is the second northernmost station on the line, and in my opinion, this station has the worst land use on the line, with a big portion of it being taken up by a hospital and parking. The station absolutely clears in the vibes department, however, being an incredibly beautiful station, and it's a great place to experience some nature as well, having a park right along the river nearby. 126 is at Division and Milwaukee on the Blue Line. This is our highest ridership station thus far by a pretty large margin, and also has incredibly high walk score, so how did it get this low on the list? It's inaccessibility and cleanliness. The station sits down near Clinton in my head as one of the filthiest stations on the L. Walls rusting and the floor constantly getting caked in salt in the winter. So basically, very, very good land use and ridership, not so great of a station. At 125, we have our first station in the loop, LaSalle and Van Buren. This station ranks last for the loop stations for a few reasons. It's one of the only inaccessible ones, which has been a theme thus far, and it's the lowest ridership station on the loop tracks. And overall, in my opinion, the style of the station is just kind of boring, definitely the least interesting station in the loop to me. The station does serve as a great connection to the LaSalle Metro station, just like the LaSalle Blue Line station we talked about earlier though. 124 is Austin Green Line. So this station is where it's important that I clarify that I'm ranking them as they are right now. In late 2025, as I write this script, a big reason Austin ranks this low is its inaccessibility, but the station is currently undergoing construction and renovation, which will make the station accessible, which is very great to see. The station does get really solid ridership for the Lake Street L and is in a pretty walkable area, and I'm hoping that this renovation will be able to improve ridership and rider experience even more. 123 is Kedzie Homan, back on the Blue Line's Forest Park branch. And this station ranks so much higher than the other Blue Line stations for one reason, and that it's our first accessible station of the entire video. Other than that, this is the same old for the Forest Park branch. Long ramps, loud highway noises, and mid-land use. 122 is Foster on the Purple Line. Unfortunately, I don't really have much to add about Foster that wasn't said for some other Purple Line stations. Just another inaccessible, lower ridership Purple Line station, but with that classic, cute Purple Line charm. Back on the Red Line, we have North and Clybourne for 121. North and Clybourne is a pretty high ridership station, but it's unfortunately held back from being inaccessible and quite dirty. Also, not the best pedestrian environment once you exit the station, being flanked by a lot of stores with lots of surface parking. For 120, we have the Forest Park Terminal on the Blue Line. The station is technically not highway median, but it's still directly adjacent to the Eisenhower Expressway, so I did not grant it the 40 points for not being highway adjacent. The station drops you off in the middle of a parking lot, making walking anywhere from the station really unpleasant. But being a terminal station, it does have a large number of bus routes, which help ridership quite a bit. The station is also accessible, which is nice. 119 is Monroe on the Blue Line, and like Harrison, I also have a tendency to forget that this station even exists. It's a pretty bog-standard Blue Line loop station, but Monroe is quite dirty and inaccessible. It gets a big boost from ridership and walk score though, being located in the middle of downtown. Our first Red Line highway median station we have 63rd at 118. The Red Line Dan Ryan stations generally score quite a bit higher than the Blue Line's highway median stations because every single one of them are accessible, and the Red Line stations tend to be quite higher ridership than the Forest Park stations. But unfortunately, highway median stations are still highway median stations. Walking from the station is quite bad, being quite a far walk to get to any residential development. 117 is Cumberland on the Blue Line. And let me just pull up the land use around Cumberland.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Other than being located within a cloverleaf interchange, the station is incredibly confusing to navigate when you're not arriving or departing via car or bus. Just a few days ago, before writing this, I personally went to Cumberland with my good friend Stormy Cara, and it took us 10 minutes just to figure out how to even get out of like the general area around the station. And once you do get out of the station, it really doesn't get much better from there. 116 is Dempster on the Purple Line, and it's more of the same old for the Purple Line. Low ridership, inaccessible, but with a bit higher walk score than our previous ones. 115 is Ridgeland Green Line, and it's very similar to Austin in the sense of it being an inaccessible Lake Street L station. The density around the station is alright though, and having a rec center nearby is a nice touch. Number 114 is Grand and Milwaukee on the Blue Line. Grand and Milwaukee is another quite standard underground Blue Line station, being inaccessible, but gets a big boost from being downtown and around quite a densely populated area. 113 is Monroe Red Line. Getting a 100 on walk score for being right in the middle of the loop is a nice boost, but unfortunately the station once again is quite dirty and inaccessible. 112 is Chicago and Milwaukee on the Blue Line. Very, very similar to Grand in Milwaukee being the following station towards O'Hare. Very densely populated and high ridership, but gets nipped on accessibility and having some of its walk shed just being the Kennedy Expressway. This one hurts me a little bit. At 111 we have Morse, and this is where I really have to detach my own personal bias. This is my favorite Dunkin' in the city of Chicago. Morse Dunkin' Donut, 5 in the morning. It hits so hard. Morris is a contender for being my personal favorite station on the L, so even with the maximum 30 points I gave it for vibes, it just didn't even make the top 100. Being inaccessible really hurt this station's ranking, and again, while I do love it, the station does have an unignorable issue with cleanliness. Maybe this is just me, but it seems like the station has a sort of issue with spiders. The station serves great on walk score and ridership though, so Morris, I'm sorry you had to rank this low. 110 is Rosemont, and holy mother of parking. Yeah, Rosemont primarily serves as a park and ride, with presumably the vast majority of riders arriving via car or bus. Walking to or from the station is possible, I guess, but if you do walk to the station, you're braver than I am. There's also virtually zero residential development within walking distance of the station anyway. Back in Rogers Park, we have Jarvis at 109. Honestly shocked that this station scored higher than Moore's, considering Jarvis is the lowest ridership station on the entire Red Line. Despite being in a very dense area, its proximity to Howard probably eats into ridership a lot. It scores great on cleanliness and vibes, but being lower ridership and being inaccessible does hurt it a lot. 108 is 47th on the Red Line. Similar to 63rd, another Dan Ryan Branch Highway station. The station is quite low ridership compared to adjacent stops, and it has a lot of vacant lots around it. I did give 47th a good boost in the vibes department, because a foamer like me really appreciates the curve that the station is located on, providing a good filming location. At 107, we have the other Blue Line Harlem station. Not this Harlem, this Harlem. Not confusing at all. Once again being a highway median, but this station does have quite a bit more density around it than the other far northwest side stations do, meaning walking to and from the station isn't an incredibly foreign concept like it is with Rosemont. It's accessible, good bus connections, and subpar vibes. 106 is Belmont on the Blue Line. A station I glazed a bit in my previous video. It has good ridership, it's pretty clean, but what brings it down is inaccessibility. Shocker. And also the land use isn't great compared to adjacent stops, being surrounded by stores with ample parking and a highway exit. 105 is Illinois Medical District, back on the Blue Line's Forest Park branch. This station has some of the highest ridership on the line, being close to, well, the Illinois Medical District, as well as Malcolm X College and the United Center. It's also accessible and actually has an elevator, which is something that the Forest Park branch stations are seemingly allergic to. 104 is Adams and Wabash in the Loop. Another quite boring, inaccessible station in the Loop. The station has higher ridership than LaSalle and Van Buren, and has more going on nearby, such as the Art Institute. Overall, a very mid station in my opinion. At 103, we have Garfield Red Line, another Dan Ryan branch highway median station on the Red Line. Pretty much identical to other Dan Ryan stations, but again lower on the list due to it being one of the lower ridership stations on the branch. 102 is 87th, also a Dan Ryan branch station. This station scored virtually identically to Garfield, with the only bonus being that it scores slightly higher on walkability than Garfield. Yet another Dan Ryan branch station at 101, we have 69th. Once again scoring nearly identically to the previous two, although with a bit higher ridership than both. Rounding out the top 100 stations, we have Addison on the Blue Line. Back to the O'Hare branch highway median stations. This has always been one of the less appalling highway median stations to me. Something about the views, being able to see all the way to Irving Park is kind of cool, but otherwise it's quite unremarkable. Number 99 is Washington on the Blue Line. Quite similar to Monroe, this is another inaccessible underground station in the Loop, but ridership really boosts this one a lot for being one of the highest ridership stations on the line and in the entire system. Still though, the station is quite dirty and covered in these random gated off areas, reducing the usable size of the platform for seemingly no reason. Number 98 is Sox 35th on the Red Line, the first station coming from downtown on the Red Line to be in the median of the Dan Ryan Expressway. This station sees pretty good ridership for the branch, in part due to its proximity to Comiskey Park, US Cellular Field, Guaranteed Rate Field, as well as good bus connections. 97 is State and Lake in the Loop. Yet again, I have to give the disclaimer that I'm ranking the stations at the time of writing the script, and at the time of writing the script, State and Lake is still operating alive and well, although it's very, very soon going to be closed off for 3 entire years for a complete reconstruction of the station. As it stands right now, the station is incredibly scuffed in the sense that, like Sheridan, I feel like it'll fall apart anytime a train pulls in. Very high ridership, but until the renovation finishes, I cannot rank it any higher. The title of the second worst terminal station goes to Linden on the Purple Line at 96. This station is quite inoffensive like other Purple Line stations, but it really suffers from low ridership and overall mediocre on walk score. It is a really cute at-grade station though. 95 is 79th on the Red Line. Being one of the highest ridership stations on the Dan Ryan branch, it gets put above most of the others. It also scores relatively well on walk score and has a connection to the 79, which is one of the busiest bus routes in the whole city. The station really is just hurt by being stuck in the middle of the Dan Ryan. 94 is 51st on the Green Line, our first visit to the South Side L. I think a lot of these stations can be comparable to the Purple Line stations we've talked about, in the sense that they're mostly cute, quiet stations that really take a hit from low ridership and subpar land use at times. 51st especially is surrounded by a lot of vacant lots and low-density development, making the station have quite low ridership. 93 is King Drive, also on the South Side L, which according to most recent data is the least used station on the entire system. The station is brought up a bit by being accessible and having an alright walk score, but being this low ridership and being stuck on a branch in the Green Line makes the station overall quite unremarkable. 92 is Jefferson Park, our highest ranking station in the median of the Kennedy Expressway. The station gets really solid ridership and has a great connection to Metra, Pace buses, and CTA buses, having a quite sizable transit center outside the main entrance. The station is unfortunately nipped a bit by still being highway median, however. Our first of 3 elevated stations on the Blue Line at 91 is California. A very, very charming station, giving great views of downtown and really has great vibes, as well as decent ridership. If this station were accessible, it would be much higher on the list, but unfortunately, this is as high as I can put it. 90 is Garfield on the Green Line. Another low ridership station on the South Side L. A great station itself, but suffers greatly from poor land use around the station. 89 is Pulaski on the Green Line. All around a very standard station for the Lake Street L. It's accessible, has average ridership for the branch. Land use is not the best and not the worst. Overall, a very standard and respectable station. Back to the branches on 63rd Street, we have Halstead at 88. Similar to the King Drive station, it is very, very low ridership, mainly being saved by scoring well on walk score, but that can only bring it up so high when your ridership is as low as it is. 87 is Damon on the Blue Line. This is our final inaccessible station of the video, so from here on out, I'll just stop mentioning it, as you can assume all stations from this point forward will be accessible. If this station were accessible though, it would undoubtedly be towards the very top of the list. Very high ridership, scores incredible on walk score, vibes, and virtually everything else. 86 is Cicero on the Green Line. Very similar to Pulaski, average ridership, subpar land use, but an overall nice vibe to the station. Also, it gets bonus points for providing one of the best photography spots on the entire system. 85 is Laramie on the Green Line. This station scored exactly 1 point higher than Cicero due to its walk score being ever so slightly higher, so take of that what you will. I do think the station provides great views though, being located near a curve on the tracks, so it has that going for it. 84 is 95th Dan Ryan, the southern terminal of the Red Line. This station had points nipped off for being highway median, but that doesn't take away from its incredibly high ridership. The amount of buses serving this station is kind of wild, providing access to many areas of southern Cook County. The station itself is also quite nice and very built up. 83 is 43rd on the Green Line. Another standard South Side L station, but with slightly better land use, having more residential development nearby. At 82, we have Costner Pink Line, our first Pink Line station of the video. Costner scores well on most aspects, but it's mainly killed by being incredibly low ridership, the lowest ridership station on the line. Being located in the middle of a fairly low density neighborhood, it's not hard to see why. The station itself is very cute though. 81 is Dempster Skokie on the Yellow Line. The northern terminal of the Yellow Line sees decent ridership and has quite a few bus connections, but walking from the station isn't really ideal, dropping you off in the middle of a parking lot next to a Target. 80 is Kedzie Green Line, another very standard station on the Lake Street L, but this time scoring quite a bit higher on walk score and having a lot of residential development nearby. I'm also a big fan of the stained glass design in the station, giving it a pretty unique charm. 79 is Central Park on the Pink Line. A pretty standard station for the Pink Line, being very clean and modern, but it takes a hit from being lower ridership than the other stations on the line. 78 is 47th on the Green Line. The station has some of the highest scoring from walk score on the South Side L, which brings it up quite a bit, as well as some nice art in the mezzanine. Overall, a pretty pleasant station. 77 is Pulaski on the Pink Line. This station scores really well for walk score, being located in a quite densely populated area, and like other Pink Line stations is really well kept, clean, and modern looking. 76 is Oakton Skokie, being the higher scoring of the two Skokie stations despite being significantly lower ridership. Oakton is definitely much less park and ride oriented than Dempster, but it makes up for that by being much easier of a station to access by walking, and being located closer to downtown Skokie. 75 is Ashland on the Orange Line, our first station on the line. This station is the lowest ridership station on the Orange Line, and taking a look at the land use, it's pretty easy to see why. Presumably most of the ridership it does get is via bus. Once you enter the station though, it's quite nice, giving great views being located over the river. Our final highway median station of the video, UIC Halstead, comes in at 74. What makes UIC Halstead the best highway median station on the system? Ridership. Really high ridership. As the name suggests, the station is directly adjacent to UIC, a major public university in Chicago. And apart from being in the expressway, the land use around the station isn't too bad at all, especially with the pedestrianization that's been done outside the entrance. Definitely the nicest things get in terms of highway stations in Chicago. 73 is Central on the Green Line. The station gets quite good ridership for the branch and is located adjacent to the Austin Town Hall, which is nice. It also scores pretty well in walk score. 72 is 35th Bronzeville IIT, another station adjacent to a university, but unlike UIC Halstead, the station is not nestled in the middle of the Eisenhower Expressway. Scoring good on walkability and decent ridership, it's all around a quite pleasant station. 71 is Kedzie Pink Line, another quite standard station on the Pink Line, scoring pretty well on all aspects, but being a bit lower in ridership for the Pink Line. A direct adjacent station to Kedzie on the Pink Line, we have California at number 70. This station scores virtually identically to Kedzie, but slightly higher on ridership, which makes sense considering it's surrounded by a bit more dense housing. And I have to mention that it's the prime station to get to Chicago's Riot Fest Music Festival at Douglas Park. 69 is California on the Green Line. Another lower ridership station on the Lake Street L, but I had to give the station quite a boost in the vibes category because of its design as well as the amazing views it provides of the skyline. Maybe a little bit biased considering it's a station I've used quite a lot, but it's my list. Another terminal station at 68, we have 63rd and Ashland on the Green Line's West 63rd branch. This station is also quite low ridership, but it gets a nice boost from walkability, having good amounts of housing nearby, some businesses, and good bus connections to the 9 and the 63. Back on the Pink Line at 67 is Western, scoring really well on walk score, having a lot of dense housing around and directly east of the station. Being on Western gives it a great connection to an incredibly busy bus corridor, and the station is also a quick walk away from Metro's BNSF line, providing a relatively easy transfer. Number 66 is Conservatory Central Park Drive on the Green Line. This station is absolutely beautiful from an architectural point of view, and it's a great way to get to Garfield Park and its namesake attraction, the Garfield Park Conservatory. What brings the station a bit down though is its very low ridership. Being located in the middle of a park is nice for certain trips, but it misses out on having a connection with the 82 bus. Very beautiful station, but in my opinion, it might be better if it was shifted a block or two over to the east. 65 is Indiana on the Green Line. A very, very nice and quaint station on the South Side L that gives you really nice views of downtown due to the S-curve the station is on, but it's very low ridership, which prevents it from scoring any higher. The other southern end of the Green Line, we have 63rd and Cottage Grove at 64th. This station is pretty similar in terms of ridership to Ashland and 63rd, but it has more going around the station with better land use, as well as better vibes in my opinion. Two terminal stations in a row, 63rd is 54th and Cermak on the Pink Line. A quite strange station having a single double berthing platform where trains both arrive and depart on. The station is quite well used and served by a number of bus routes, but it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of walkability. 62 is Damon on the Pink Line, the easternmost station that runs parallel to 21st Street along the Pink Line. Being closer to downtown, the area around the station is quite densely populated and the station is pretty well used. All around a nice station, and I really like the cafe jumping bean in the mezzanine. It's nice to see local businesses utilize some of the CTA's retail space so it can be used by something other than like a Dunkin' Donuts. Number 61 is Howard. I have a lot to say about Howard. It serves as the northern terminus of the Red Line and the southern terminus for the Yellow and Purple lines, and as such the station is very high ridership. And the station would be near the very top of the list if it wasn't for cleanliness and the very many delays that this station causes. I think that the station architecturally is quite nice, but I feel as if I need to plug my nose every time I use the station, and for that I'm going to have to rack some points. Our first Brown Line station, and I guess by proxy the worst Brown Line station, Paulina, is at number 60. The station isn't super low on ridership or anything, but it's in the bottom half for the line and doesn't really have anything special about it going on. Back downtown at 59, we have
Harold Washington Library, State and Van Buren.
also one of the lesser used stations in the loop, but it serves as a transfer point from the elevated lines to the red and blue lines. And it serves as a namesake attraction, the Harold Washington Library, quite well. 58 is Kimball, the terminus of the Brown Line. The station is nice and sees quite high ridership, being at the end of the line and having good bus connections. 57 is Francisco Brown Line. As far as I could tell, this is the least used station on the line, which makes sense considering that the surrounding area is purely residential. That being said, the station is really cute and I'm quite fond of it. 56 is Southport, again on the Brown Line. Southport is the first station of the Brown Line after it diverts off the North Side Main Line, and it's a pretty well used and quite clean station. 55 is Wellington on the Brown and Purple Express lines. Not quite as high ridership as Southport, but it beats it a bit in terms of walk score, and in my opinion beats the station out in terms of vibes. Back on the pink line for number 54 is Cicero. Much lower in ridership than the Brown Line stations we just took a look at, but it makes up for it in all of the other categories. Also ironic that this station got 54th, as it's served by the CTA 54 bus. 53 is Addison Brown Line, a pretty standard Brown Line station on the Ravenswood branch, but it's quite unique in the sense that it has these weird offset platforms. 52 is Midway on the Orange Line, a really quite great terminal station serving Midway Airport really well, although a little bit less direct of a connection to the airport than O'Hare on the Blue Line. The station is also used as a general transfer point for other areas southwest of downtown, so it's not exclusively for the airport. The newest station on the CTA, Damon Green Line, is at 51. Ridership has been pretty solid for the station since its opening, and with it being so new, the cleanliness is really top-notch among the system. It's nice to see it being used quite a lot now with the Bulls and Blackhawks seasons going on at the nearby United Center. 50 is Halstead on the Orange Line, the first station outside of downtown on the line. The station has a direct connection to the 8 and serves the neighborhood of Bridgeport quite well. Western Brown Line is at 49, which again is funny considering that the station is served by the 49 bus. Western Brown Line is in my opinion quite bland architecturally, but is functionally sound as a station and is quite high ridership, being located in the middle of Lincoln Square, which is a very walkable neighborhood. 48 is Sedgwick Brown and Purple Express lines. A really cute station in Old Town, but strangely is quite isolated with stations on each side being quite far away. Also like Sheridan in Indiana, I love the views of trains coming in on the curve. 47 is Rockwell Brown Line. Like Kimball and Francisco, the station is also at grade near the end of the line. Very similar to Francisco, but with more commercial space around the station, giving it slightly higher ridership. Back in the loop for number 46, we have Jackson on the Red Line. A very high ridership subway station downtown, and one of the few stations to hit 100 on walk score. The station has a direct transfer to the Blue Line within fare control as well, which is very nice. 45 is Thorndale on the Red Line, a quite dated station but still very nice and functionally sound, albeit with a platform that's way too narrow for the ridership that it sees. Still though, the area around the station is very, very densely populated, and being so close to the beach is a nice touch. 44 is Irving Park on the Brown Line, a pretty high ridership station with lots of good food and cafes adjacent to the station. I do wish though that they added an entrance to the south side of Irving Park Road. 43 is 35th and Archer Orange Line. This station actually scores near the top of walk score on the Orange Line, but unfortunately is on the lower end of ridership. Still though, this may be my own personal pick for my favorite station on the Orange Line. Back up north at 42 is Damon on the Brown Line. Another very neighborhood-centric station on the line with a very high walk score, and also lots to do around the station. 41 is Polk on the Pink Line, a very high ridership station for the line. The station is quite a big job center, being located adjacent to the Illinois Medical District as well as UIC. The station also scores quite well on all other stats. 40 is Kedzie on the Orange Line. The station actually doesn't score all that great on walk score, but punches above its weight in other ways. The station really benefits from having the bus connections that it has. 39 is Kedzie on the Brown Line, the second to last station on the line and another at-grade station. Like the others, but has even more going on adjacent to the station. 38 is a Diversey on the Brown and Purple Express lines, a very high ridership station located on the border of Lakeview and Lincoln Park, in a very walkable area, and the station itself is very cute. 37 is Ashland on the Green and Pink lines. The station is the westernmost, where the Green and Pink lines run together before the Pink line veers south. A very nice historic station in a quite up-and-coming area. Our final station served exclusively by the Pink line is 18th. The station is adjacent to the 18th Street Commercial Corridor in Pilsen, which is a very popular corridor for food and shopping. The station itself is also gorgeous, featuring lots of artwork. 35 is Montrose on the Brown Line. Located in the heart of Ravenswood, the station is really quite beautiful and in a very walkable area. Something about the vibes of this station are just immaculate. 34 is Western on the Orange Line. A quite high ridership station on the line, seems to follow the general trend of the Orange Line where walkability could leave something to be desired but punches above its weight in other ways. Although the walk score of this station isn't as bad as some of the previous stations we've discussed on the line. 33 is Armitage on the Brown and Purple Express lines. Another quite historic station that sees quite high ridership with very good walk score, as well as being on a quite popular commercial corridor. 32 is Granville on the Red Line, a very high ridership station in a very, very dense and walkable area. Similar to Thorndale though, it could benefit from a makeover in the near future. 31 is Harlem and Lake on the Green Line, the terminus of the line. The station is quite high on ridership and has a lot going on nearby, being located in downtown Oak Park. 30 is Clinton on the Green and Pink lines. The station is high ridership, being located in West Loop, and serves as a great transfer to Ogilvy Transportation Center for a metro connection. The station is also very beautiful from an architectural standpoint. 29 is Bryn Mawr on the Red Line. Very recently renovated as part of RPM Phase 1, the station is incredibly clean and modern. Very high ridership, great walk score, and very densely populated area. 28 is Berwyn Red Line, one stop south of Bryn Mawr. Also renovated during RPM Phase 1, the station reaps all the same benefits that I discussed with Bryn Mawr. It's been a very long time since we visited the Blue Line, but back at 27 is the other Western station on the Blue Line, on the O'Hare branch. Unlike both of the other adjacent elevated stations on the line, Western is accessible, which is the biggest reason why it scores so much higher, but also the station is just very high on ridership and provides really great views of downtown from the platform. Our final station served exclusively by the Orange Line, Pulaski, is at 26. Pulaski is very high ridership, and it strikes a great balance of having pretty decent walk score with stuff to do nearby, as well as really great bus connections. Really overall a very nice station. And our final station on the Evanston branch, Davis, is at number 25. Davis really knocks all the other Evanston stations out of the water, being one of the only accessible stations on the whole line, and being located in the heart of downtown Evanston, making it very high ridership. The station also has a direct connection to Metra's Union Pacific North Line, which is a great touch. 24 is Loyola on the Red Line, ending the trilogy of stations named after adjacent universities. This one scores the best on both ridership and walkability. Being on a curve is an interesting choice, though the station is ADA accessible, but with how narrow the platform is, I cannot imagine it being a fun station to try and navigate with a mobility device. That being said, it is quite a beautiful station. 23 is Cermak McCormick Place on the Green Line, our last exclusively Green Line station. The station is undoubtedly the most impressive from an architectural view on the line, being absolutely gorgeous, and is very modern, being one of the newest stations on the system. Pretty solid on ridership for the line too, with lots going on nearby. 22 is Morgan on the Pink and Green lines. The station is also quite a recent addition to the system and is located in the heart of West Loop, a very booming area seeing tons of population growth in recent years, making the station very well used. 21 is Lawrence on the Red Line, another recently renovated RPM station on the line. What I said about the others still stands, but Lawrence has the benefit of being located in the heart of Uptown's entertainment district with lots of music venues and other entertainment establishments nearby. 20 is Roosevelt on the Red, Green, and Orange lines. The station is a very important transfer point between the lines just south of the loop, meaning those wishing to transfer between these lines don't have to go all the way into the loop to transfer, you just have to go like 90% of the way there to do it. A very, very high ridership station in South Loop, another very densely populated and booming area in recent years. 19 is Clark and Division on the Red Line, a station that some could or could not consider to be downtown depending on your views. Definitely one of the nicer underground stations on the network in a very dense part of the city. 18 is Argyle on the Red Line, the last of our 4 RPM renovated stations. The station is very well used and is directly on top of the Asia on Argyle district, a great commercial corridor with lots of Asian restaurants and stores, almost like a second version of Cermak Chinatown, is at number 17, which unfortunately is the last station we'll be looking at on the south side, which instead of it being a diss to the south side, I think is more of a wake-up call that we need to be investing more in our transit infrastructure on the south side of town. But back to the station itself, it's the only elevated Red Line station south of downtown. It's very high ridership and has stunning views of the skyline from platform level. 16 is Chicago and Franklin on the Brown and Purple Express lines. Another station on kind of the outskirts of downtown, being very, very walkable and densely populated. The station is really beautiful as well and features these old wayfinding signs that I find really cute. 15 is Jackson on the Blue Line, the brother to Jackson on the Red Line. I think one could technically consider these two to be one station, but the CTA counts ridership data and consider them as two separate stations, so I'll be doing the same. The main reason that the score is higher than the Red Line one though is the cleanliness of it. I'm not sure why this is the case, but the Blue Line Jackson seems to be incredibly modern while the Red Line Jackson seems to be way more dirty. 14 is Wilson on the Red and Purple Express lines. Wilson is a very, very high ridership station. While not a part of the RPM Phase 1 construction, the station was quite recently reconstructed. It's in a very dense area and serves as a great transfer point between the Red Line and the Purple Express. It really is an iconic station and is one of the first things I think of when I think of Uptown, which is the neighborhood that the station is in. Our last exclusively Brown Line station, Merchandise Mart, is at number 13. Merchandise Mart is located directly across the river from the Loop and is attached to, well, the Merchandise Mart. A very well-used station, definitely deserving to be this high on the list. As a White Sox fan, it pains me to put Addison this high, but here we are at number 12. Addison is located directly next to the home of the Cubs, Wrigley Field, but the station is very well used even outside of game days due to how densely populated the area is. And with this already high ridership, it becomes an absolute swamp of people on game days. The station is functionally sound, and I really think it should be a bit larger to accommodate for game day crowds. Just barely missing out of the top 10 at number 11 is Washington and Wells in the Loop. Like Clinton, the station also serves as a transfer point to Ogilvie Transportation Center, as well as many jobs downtown near the station. As far as loop stations go, it's definitely one of the more modern ones, and it's all around a nice experience to use. Starting the top 10, we have Quincy, directly south of Washington and Wells. Very similar ridership to Washington and Wells, but the main reason it has the edge would be its vintage aesthetic. Covered in old posters and wayfinding, it really is a very unique station to use, and almost like a time capsule of sorts. The station is also used as a transfer point for Union Station for Metra and Amtrak trains, but it's still a few blocks of a walk away. Number 9 is Belmont on the Red, Brown, and Purple Express lines. This station is a very important transfer station between the lines, while also being a very important destination in its own right. The station is located right before the Brown Line veers west and the Purple Line begins to run express to the north. The station also has tons going on nearby, so it sees very high ridership both from transfers and people using it as a final destination. Number 8 is O'Hare on the Blue Line. Now, I did give O'Hare some cookie points on the walk score department because it's literally located in the airport, but oh man, this is absolutely one of the best, if not the best, airport rapid transit station in the country. The station is located in the heart of the airport itself, meaning there are no long walks or people mover rides or bus rides, looking at you, Boston, required to get into the airport. The station is right by baggage claim, and in addition to being incredibly convenient, it's also very pretty. My only complaint is that if you wish to buy a ticket at the station, it's going to cost you $5 instead of the normal $2.50 for a single ride. That's just cruel. Number 7 is Logan Square, our final exclusive Blue Line station of the video. While the Blue Line got a pretty bad rep at the start, it's important to acknowledge it has really good stations as well, and Logan Square is truly incredible. Located at the heart of its namesake neighborhood, there's lots to do nearby, walkability is great, and the station itself is very, very clean and nice to use. 6 is Grandin State on the Red Line. As much as I love O'Hare and Logan Square, I think that I may have to give Grandin State the title of prettiest underground station on the system. It really is nice. The station is also in the most densely populated part of the whole city, being surrounded by skyscrapers and next to the Magnificent Mile shopping corridor, Streeterville, and Navy Pier. 5 is Clark and Lake downtown. The station does have a certain reputation, but I think it's outweighed by how integral of a station it is to the network, probably being the most important transferring station in the entire city, only rivaled by State and Lake, which the station has some cleanliness issues, but nothing too horrible. And having a direct elevator connection to the Blue Line behind fare control is really nice. 4 is Washington and Wabash. As of now, until 2029 when State and Lake reopens, it is the newest station in the Loop. Definitely being the prettiest station in the Loop right now, being close to busy sites like the Bean, Millennium Station, and the Lakeshore East neighborhood. But for some reason, this station chooses to participate in 51st Green Line erasure.
There's no 51st. 52nd?
No, yeah, it's 51st. What the heck?
There's no 51st on the Washington and Wabash side.
I don't know what kind of beef Washington and Wabash has with 51st on the Green Line, but I've got to learn about that lore. But overall, yeah, it's a very pleasant station to use, and it's probably the best of all 8 or 7 elevated loop stations. 3 is Chicago and State. Very similar to Grandin State, but a few blocks further north. The station is both a huge residential area and a huge job center. Absolutely tons of stuff going on nearby, a connection to one of the busiest bus routes in the city, close to the John Hancock Center, Water Tower Place, and just an astonishing number of apartments. Walk score and ridership really bring the station up as high as it is. 2 is Fullerton on the Red, Brown, and Purple Express lines, and this one hurts me a little bit. There seems to be some beef between Fullerton and Belmont on which station is better, and me personally, I'm on Team Belmont, but the stats don't lie. So even with me putting in a quite petty low score on the Vibes section, that was not enough to bring Fullerton down any lower. The biggest driver of ridership is its proximity to DePaul University, but the station is also just very well used by all kinds of people nearby, and it is objectively a very well-built station. I just wish there was less car parking nearby. Well, who would have thought that the #1 spot on this list would also be the most used station on the entire network? Lake Red Line is at #1, being located directly under the State and Lake Station. It's an important transfer point between the Red Line and the elevated lines. But also being located in the Loop, it's a very important destination in and of itself. It really isn't anything special from a Vibes point of view or anything, but its high ridership and 100 on walk score solidify it as being the #1 best station on the Chicago L. And there is all 144 stations on the Chicago L ranked. Again, this video is not really intended to be taken as fact or be super serious. It was more like a fun idea that I had, a fun little experiment. But a lot of the data that I dug up was pretty interesting. For example, as a lot of you could probably see, a lot of the first half of the list were stations on the south and west sides, and a lot of the second half of the list were stations on the north side, which definitely points to certain like disinvestments in the parts of town where some of these stations are. And while ridership in general tends to be much higher on the north side, I think that investing in our transit and in our communities could do a lot to boost ridership on the south side and on the west side. Because when the green and blue lines are incredibly slow and take 3 times as long as driving, I probably am not going to be as motivated to use it when I could just drive instead. All that being said though, I hope this was at least like entertaining. This was a really grueling project that took me a long time to get out, so anyone that is still here, I greatly appreciate. And before somebody suggests this, I will not be ranking every single bus stop in Chicago.